But first we begin with a question. Do you know how many French people in the whole of history claim to have been abducted by aliens? No? Well, I'll tell you, it's 3. In Britain, it's 4, and yet in America, home of every stupid lunatic on the planet, it's 13,128. Now, I can see why Martians would want to land in a remote part of the world like Utah, but why do they never encounter a stockbroker who's out there on holiday doing some hiking? Why is it always people in dungarees? People called Dwayne. I have a theory on this. They're lying. Aliens have never been to Earth. And while I'm at it, JFK was killed by a lone gunman, Neil Armstrong did walk on the moon, crop circles are caused by students, and Ford has never developed a secret car that runs on parsley. Now, my next guest disagrees with all of this. He calls himself a conspiracy theorist. We think he may be a loony, but let's find out. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus Allen. So are you going to try and convince me, then, that man hasn't walked on the moon?
Yes, I am going to convince you.
Well, why, principally, would they fake it?
Because they couldn't get there. There was a real problem in getting a man on the moon.
Yeah.
Not the rockets. There were plenty of good rockets. The rockets got there all right.
Yeah.
It's called radiation. Beyond the Earth's Van Allen radiation belts, which go to about 20,000 miles, there's real radiation. The sort of radiation which we're told, if it gets through the hole in the ozone layer, is going to give us all cancer, and we'll die.
But couldn't they have made radiation suits for them?
They could have done, but apparently they didn't. Because if they made radiation suits for the astronauts could have lent their suits to technicians to go into Chernobyl and clear up the mess in the nuclear reactor. So I asked the manufacturer, and I said, could these suits be used to go into Chernobyl? And they said no. And I said, why? And they said, because we weren't asked to provide any radiation protection. Which seemed a bit odd.
Nothing to do with the fact they didn't like the Russians and they were glad their nuclear power station was no.
Yes, that was a few years later.
But this is all very well saying they didn't go because of radiation. There is some photographic evidence, is there not? And I've got some here, of a man quite clearly on the moon.
Yep, that is quite clear. That is allegedly Buzz Aldrin on the moon, photographed by Neil Armstrong.
Yes.
On Apollo 11. He's on the moon, isn't he?
He is on the moon.
We've been told he's on the moon.
Yes.
So we believe he's on the moon.
He is on the bloody moon. That's a picture of a man in a spacesuit on the moon.
Exactly.
Well, what's wrong with it? What makes you think that photograph wasn't taken on the moon?
All right. There's the sun, you can see in the photograph, the sun is coming from here, from the right-hand side of the picture.
OK, yeah.
You can see all the detail in the front of that spacesuit.
Yeah.
Where did the light come from that illuminated the shadow area of that photograph? You can see where the sun is illuminating him. That's on his left-hand side.
Yeah.
But all the rest of the front is shadow area, or it should be.
Flash photography?
They had no flash guns with them. They had no
Candle?
lights. They had no reflectors. Candle, possibly.
Reflection from the Earth?
Reflection from the Earth, possibly, except when you work out where the Earth was at the time of the Apollo 11 landing, the Earth was directly overhead.
But, right, well, what about this one?
Right.
This one here.
There he is, Aldrin walking down the ladder from the lander.
Yeah.
You can see where the sun is. The sun is, again, on the right-hand side. So the whole area he's in there is in shadow. So where did the light come from that's illuminating him so clearly? Because, right, let's say there are two places it could come from. There's two places it could come from. One is the Earth. We've eliminated that.
Yeah.
It's not in the right position. It's not bright enough.
So where did they take these pictures then?
All right, before they did the supposed landing, July 1969, they practiced in simulators. There's no secret about that. They built sets which were exact replicas of the site they were going to land on. There was a series called The Planet, shown on BBC, which showed the Sea of Tranquility created in Arizona. Yeah. Exact duplicate.
So this is, in fact, Arizona, this picture here?
It could be Arizona. It's more likely to be a very large studio set in which they could
What's
do
this?
the simulation. Well,
This is what did someone leave a window open, do you think?
well, they may have left. It looks more like, I don't like to say this, but it does look rather like a spotlight. But
OK, we've got the footage of, I think it's Apollo 15,
OK,
taking off from the moon, OK? What is wrong with this? This is proof. Look.
What's left on the moon?
Well, the legs.
Yeah, there's a launch site, a launch. The lower half of the lunar lander was left on the moon.
Yeah.
OK?
No,
so it's left on the moon.
Yeah.
That lander is the size of a small truck. Quite a big piece of kit. 5 years ago, the Americans sent an unmanned craft back to the moon to rephotograph the whole lunar surface using 1990s technology. Now, 1990s technology...
I know what you're going to say.
Spy satellite technology, the technology that can read a newspaper headline from space. If that technology was being used to rephotograph the lunar surface, I think it could have photographed one of those landers still on the surface, or one of the rovers.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that photograph. I've searched the internet, and if anybody can find it, I'd love to see it.
Can I just throw this one into the mix, OK? Thousands of people work at NASA. Now, it's very difficult to get an American to shut up for like 5 minutes. So how did they get 30,000 NASA employees to shut up for 30 years? I mean, has no one been to a dinner party, had a few too many, and go, I'll tell you a great story, though it never went?
They have.
They have?
They have.
And then they, die in mysterious train crashes?
Well, they tend to be disbelieved, because I watched the live landing. I watched the landings live on television.
As did I.
As did you.
Yeah.
As did a lot of people.
Yeah.
I wanted to believe that what I was seeing was the truth, was real. I wanted to believe that man landed on the moon. But let's just say they examine all the evidence to get to the moon. They examine all the difficulties, because this started with Kennedy's famous speech in May 1961, we'll land a man on the moon before the decade is out and return him safely to the Earth. Landing a man on the moon wasn't the problem. It was returning him safely to the Earth that was the problem. If they discovered at some point during that time, no, we don't think we can return them safely. We've got the radiation problems to overcome. We've got the temperature problems to overcome. We've got all the landing. We've got to do it by the end of the decade. You also got to put the whole thing in context. We're talking about the late 1960s, height of the Vietnam War, height of the Cold War, height of the space race. Russia had beaten America to just about every major objective. First Sputnik, first man, first woman, first two-man, first to the moon, 1959, first to Venus. America were nowhere. America don't have the option of coming second.
Is that why NASA shot Kennedy, then, which I presume you think?
Kennedy was killed accidentally by one of the people in the car behind him.
Oh, no, we're not...
But let's not worry about that.
No. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus Allen.
I and probably 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 other journalists covered the step-by-step build-up, the construction of the facilities at the Kennedy Space Center, the development of the Apollo spacecraft in Houston, Texas, and here in California. There were so many witnesses to this event, let alone the 18 men who went to the moon. There's no way you could develop a hoax around that.
NASA's photographic records of the moon landings hold the clues to this conspiracy. TV producer David Percy has spent years examining the photographs. He's convinced he's found evidence of a hoax.
The Apollo photographs are faked. They're encoded also with what appears to be deliberate mistakes.
He claims there are continuity errors between the photographs and the TV images.
In this example, the astronaut jumps into the air and reaches the peak of his jump. His colleague takes a snap. There is a triangle of fabric that should be absolutely secure and motionless that has flapped up from the top of the portable life support system. In the TV freeze frame, we can see this triangular flap is correctly fastened and is therefore not visible. It is not flapped up.
But is this evidence that the moon landing was filmed in a studio?
Now, looking at this picture, the rock over to the left of the screen has the letter C marked on it. Why should there be a letter of the English alphabet stamped onto a rock on the moon's surface? Surely we're looking at the deliberate planting of props in a pre-designated position in the foreground of a photographic film set.
It is said that for every hour spent in space, 5 hours were spent rehearsing on Earth. Of course they did that, and that was no secret. There was no secret that photographs and films were taken of models of the lunar surface. It worked as a simulation. Nobody else had been there. Nobody knew the difference.
Columbia, this is Houston, AOS, over.
It's worth noting that during the Apollo 11 mission, NASA omitted to get any photographs of Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon. All the shots are of co-pilot Buzz Aldrin. Would NASA have made such a PR blunder if everything had been staged in a studio?
The search for conspiracies is the search for explanations. And in many cases, in many mysteries, a conspiracy is a very plausible first hypothesis. You then have to look beyond that and find out what really happened and research, talk to people, talk to technology, see what was physically possible.
How is the quality of the TV?
For any hoax to succeed, you must control access to the information. Now, there were several 100,000 men and women who worked on the Apollo machines. And for all these people to have worked on the hoax and not come forward means that they probably had to have been killed. You couldn't kill that many people and keep it hidden.
1969. The world watches as astronauts take their first steps on the moon.
That's one small step for man.
But the race wasn't only in space. The moon landings provided the US with a priceless piece of propaganda against the Russians. In fact, some people think that it was so valuable that they would have done anything to achieve it, even if it meant having to fake it. Winning the space race was a massive victory for America, but some claim it was a Cold War con trick filmed on Earth. Former professional photographer Marcus Allen says these pictures look too good to be true. So in the photos themselves, are there any clues that things aren't what they seem to be?
Definitely. Let's have a look at this sequence of photographs here. And taking the detail of Aldrin's right heel, you have the highlight of light on the heel. Where did that come from? A highlight is produced by a point source of light. But the sun is directly behind the lander, so this whole image here is in shadow. It is not illuminated by the sun. No additional lights were carried on Apollo 11. There are no reflectors except the lunar surface. This photograph, I contend, was taken under controlled studio lighting conditions. Here's a picture showing an astronaut taking the photograph and his shadow, which indicates that the light, the sunlight, the only source of light on the moon, is directly behind him. But then you look at this rock just off to his right, and the shadow is at right angles to the astronaut's shadow. That can't be right.
OK, but when you look at the footage, there's no way that can be fake. Look at this. This kind of floaty movement, how did they achieve that?
Well, very straightforward. You'd film it at normal speed and then slow it down.
Now, of course, the consensus is that our giant leap wasn't filmed on Earth. But if you were going to try and do it, how easy would it be? Here is Luke, a researcher, all right? Not so much an astronaut as a paid next to naught. Now, here is a piece of wire attached to two very big blokes. Yeah, all right. So what we do next is we pick Luke up and then we slow him down. OK, Luke, visor down, please. Don't forget you're on the moon. Action. Bearing in mind it's his first go, that was awful. We need to take more weight off. Try and keep your hands in front of you, a bit like ski poles, because that's what they do on the NASA stuff. Action.
Okay, yeah.
Now we're getting there.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Best one yet. What we should really do is slow it down.
Okay, yeah,
and
good
then
point.
see if it's any more convincing.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, I'm kind of with NASA. That's quite good.
Perfect with the LIM and the rover and you and the old flag. Come on out here and give me a big Navy salute.
Slowing it down does make a big difference. It's got that kind of spacey feel about it. That is quite good.
And you and the old flag.
I could possibly watch that and maybe think that it looked like the one I've seen before from NASA. Of course, NASA denies the conspiracy theories, and scientists say there's rock-solid evidence that man went to the moon.
We have 400 kilograms of rocks brought back by the Apollo astronauts. They've been analysed by scientists all over the world, and no one has been able to say that these rocks come from the Earth.
One of the things is that the shadows on a lot of the still photographs don't seem to go in the same direction.
But actually, it's very hard to get a sense of distance when you're looking at these lunar pictures. And if things are much further away, it will appear that the shadows aren't parallel. So actually what we're seeing on the moon is the same as we see on the Earth, and it's just coming down to perspective.
Whatever happened 40 years ago, our fascination with the moon isn't over. China's said to be planning a moonwalk by 2024. And then we will know what's been going on, because of course when they get there, they'll find all the flags and all the other stuff that the Americans left behind, won't they?